Yeah, hi, this is SportsReplays, and this is how I did this round. It's a pretty ordinary, terrible, just not good enough. This stage of the year, went down in ranks somehow and only finished in the top 33% of the round, which is just terrible for someone with my experience. Somehow win two lead games. I don't know how you did worse than me. And then we'll start off with Sheasel. Did alright. Even though North Melbourne lost. Yeah, this is where the real kick up the arse is. This is Freo. I wanted to bring in Oscar McDonald, but he got dropped even though he played well the last two matches. So I was hoping to bring him in and get rid of, was it like DeCotting, I believe, get that extra 100k, then bring Petrarca in and Dunkley in. And I can maybe get rid of Ashcroft for that and get rid of Davison. But that never happened. He getting dropped, and I was unable to bring in Petrarca, but I was able to bring in Dunkley in. But didn't do the trades, not all the trades that I wanted to do. So it sort of stuffed me up for the week. And not only that, Freo absolutely got smashed. Clark 58, it's just shocking. Same with Sarong, he only got 80. As you can see here, this is both terrible for their price point. You know, lose probably over 100 points just there, really, or close to it, just off those two players alone. Matt Roberts only 82. Max Holmes 94. Again, disappointing, even though Geelong wins. So he's actually performed poorly. Hasn't performed that great the last couple of rounds. Actually, Matt Roberts is now higher than him in terms of price. He actually has a better average in him, which is a bit of a surprise. I just think more teams are paying attention to Holmes. He did okay, but he's not getting like 120 plus scores frequently enough. I can't have these sub 100 scores too often. Just not good enough. And then you got Bias 49, so he performed poorly, so he might have to go this week. In fact, he's got a higher price than DeConning, so he's going to go. DeConning might even have a slightly lower break even. I'll have a look. They probably have a similar break even, but the Bias has got a higher price point to be able to get a bit more money. So yeah, he might have to go. DeConning's probably a hold at this stage. And then Reed's phenomenal. And he's really bounced back after an average first two rounds, which is sort of understandable because Essendon's defence has actually done pretty well, other than maybe against Collingwood, but even then that wasn't too bad. Ever since round two, they've actually, sort of stepped up, and Reed's been part of that. So he's bounced back well. Unfortunately, I didn't take his score. I would have been another 50, 60 points better off. But that should, I'll probably just have to, probably get rid of Bias for a player who I might bring in Sinclair, which we'll get into that later in the video. Carroll 37, not good enough, but still went up in price. I want to put Reed on the emergency option as well, but by the time I did it, the game already started. This is probably Thursday night games as well. You don't know the whole teams, who's in and out for the Friday and the weekend matches, and it's just frustrating. That's another reason why I don't like Thursday nights. Not only because it's during the week, but it's just a pain in the ass trying to get everything ready within an hour. And the player that you want to bring in isn't playing, and you're trying to make changes at the last minute. It just doesn't go too well, and as a result, I had a poor week because of it. And yeah, day costs didn't do that great either. 89, he still went up in price, but he's probably going to drop going forward. At least in maybe the next two rounds. And then we've got Sarong only 80, which I already mentioned earlier. So he's actually 550 now. I mean, if you're going to bring in Sarong, maybe not this week, maybe the week next week after. It's been a bit of not a complete disaster, but disappointing. Probably almost is a disaster for paying top dollar for him. And same with Rosie. Freo and Port Adelaide are just inconsistent, and they're never going to win a flag. Just crap from both teams. Really, it just should never have brought in Rosie. Really, started with him. They had Butters out for the first few rounds. I thought, if he can have a couple of good games and get up to 600k, then perhaps trade him. That might be a good idea, but it just hasn't worked out really. And there was another selection that I wasn't particularly too happy with that I went with. Same with like Perryman. These sort of players where you're not 100% sold. with them, even everyone else sort of, they're not necessarily pods. It's sort of the traps that everyone falls for, and I fall for if you can avoid them. I would say Rosie's a trap. He's a good player, but is he going to be that top elite tier like with Bonds, Liberatore even, Nick Dacos, Zach Merritt, that sort of club? Is he going to be on those levels? And he just hasn't performed, to these, at that standard. Like, he's been good, but can he go that next level? And Dunkley trading him for Oliver, which is probably a decent move because he was at a cheap price point. He actually went down in price, so this week's probably the best week to bring in Dunkley if you plan to do so. He didn't quite get his break even, almost. And then Finn Callahan's bounced back, so I'm happy about that. Sort of saved the round from being an even bigger disaster. And yeah, Will Ashcroft 130. So this Brisbane game sort of saved my week a little bit as well, for being an even bigger train wreck than what it already was. So I was thinking get rid of Levi Ashcroft as well, but he just scored under 100. So he might be even a hold this week. I'll probably hold on to him for probably at least another week and then get rid of him. And then you've got, so look, EC option, emergency option of Kako, which is 60 is okay, I guess. Did miss out on 14 points with Max Hall. Probably has been scoring better than Kako. I think he has a way better role. Kako's a small forward. It hasn't really clicked off, Kako. I thought he'll at least get like 2 to 3 goals against West Coast or North, or at least one of those sides, and get like a 90, 80-point score. But he has slowly increased. It's a slow burn with Kako. We've got Sydney this week. There's a chance he might get a couple goals. Soon see. And Camporelli's a dead rookie. And same with Hall. And then I've got the rucks here. You've got Sherry and DeConning. Sherry did well. Took the VC option, which was a good selection. Happy with that. In fact, I think he was my best player this week. Yeah, he was. But you got other people who got Max Gorn, so it's a real kick up the arse. DeConning only 80, so a little disappointing. So if you had Max Gorn instead of DeConning, you'd have been like another 110 points higher. Actually, almost 120 points higher. So Max Gorn shows why he's the best fucker in the comp. I think DeConning's sort of hasn't been particularly that great the last few weeks. He's been okay, but not started off well, but sort of died down in the last few weeks. Died down a little bit. And at the forward line, so Horn Francis 92 was one of the better Port Adelaide players. Still not quite the levels that what we want, but everyone has Horn Francis, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Same with the rank, 138, happy with that. Some people don't have him, which is a bit of a surprise. Even good sides, it was always going to be in the top 6 forwards. And then you got McRae, scored 160. Actually, no, so he was my best player. So, yeah, sure, he was my second best player. Forgot about McRae. So he's shown why St Kilda selected him and why he was one of the best Supercoach picks for a while, or up there with the top 10 picks. And then Daniel 89 did okay, I guess. And then Davidson, who I wanted to get rid of for this very reason. Even though Bulldogs did well, he only got dominated Port Adelaide. He only got 46, so he's got to have to go. I'm just trying to think who I'm going to get rid of him for. Maybe a Nick Martin potentially, although Nick Martin does have a high break even, but it probably suits what I'm going to do this week. And Cleary's 63, which is okay, so he's going to generate some cash, so I'm happy about that. And then Huswade 82, which I'm really happy about. I took the gamble with that, and it sort of paid off because I really had no other option. I think, he's playing this week. He did all right last week. If he goes well this week, he should be able to hopefully get a game next week and go up in price. He should. If he gets dropped, I'll be you're very frustrated. I know they played a few weak sides, Hawthorn, so they're going to have a bit of a tougher matchup. But Melbourne as well, so they're probably 3 of the weakest sides in a row. Although Melbourne will be a bit of a tougher matchup in the midfield, at the very least. So it's going to be interesting how that's going to work out for Hawthorn, because Would say an upset, but I can see Melbourne, pulling off a miracle here. Not necessarily a miracle, because for $3, there's been way bigger upsets. So it's not going to be, it'll be a shock, but it won't be like, an absolute shock like Carlton beating Richmond early in round one. And you got Will White at 36, which is disappointing. And then you got Henderson didn't play. So, there's quite a few issues here. As you can see, it's really that Freo game though with Sarong and Clark performing well below average. It's sort of really, it was a kick up the arse, and having Davidson on field still. If I did the trades that I wanted to make, like bringing, say, what's his name, McDonald, say if he played and get like a 70, use that extra 100k to get, Petrarca in, that would have been 80 points better off. But I think, Clark and Sarong were the main disappointments, and you had people having Merrin and Gawn in, and the captain and them just dominating, instead of me having like Rosie and Sarong, which isn't good enough. So what I could do, I can get rid of a Bice or a De Conning, probably Bice now because he's got more. It's actually more expensive than De Conning. So I was thinking bringing Jake Sinclair. He's actually gone down in value, so he's a bit of a bargain. Pick him up. And what do you know? Now that's actually a half decent defence. Although Clark, who knows? I've only got really one average player on there, no actual rookie on there, so I could potentially that. And if McDonald does get reselected because Freo had a terrible game, then I can use that 200k, get rid of Conning, and then bring in maybe another midfielder or a forward here. Probably still think another good midfielder we probably do need. What I could do, probably not the right week to do it, I could also bring in, what's his name? Oh, actually I don't have Nick Marr, I can't actually do that. I'm just trying to think, who else should I bring in? Who else should I trade in? There's no real rookies on the bubble that I don't have. So if McDonald is playing, hopefully he is. Probably not. 7% of people still picked him, so obviously didn't hear the late news. Get rid of him. Use a boost, which I was planning to do last week, and maybe bring in a Martin. Ideally, I want to bring in Petrarca, but on average, Peter Wright, 105, and you could still bring in Petrarca. Nick Martin, maybe next week, probably the best week to do so. Maybe even bring in Chad Warner. Potentially. That's one way of looking at here. And all of a sudden, you got at least a half decent, forward line. With Manny really Cleary, the only real main weak link here. And then I've got 75k. That's if everything goes well. And I just hope McDonald gets selected in. I hope so. So that's probably what I'll do. Maybe bring in a Wayner instead. Chad Warner, a bit cheaper. Or a Petrarca maybe. I can't afford him and hold on Levi. I've got really huge concerns about Sarong. And I need to get Bond in soon and maybe Butters. And they're probably the main midfielders you want to get in at least at this stage. And probably even a Merritt too. I could even do that. I could just ignore Davidson. Or swap out Davidson and bring Leo Ashcroft here. Taking out Davidson. And bring in another midfielder if I can afford to do so. But I don't think I can do that at this stage. But yeah, Sinclair is probably definitely trading. At least I'm bringing one Primo in this week. Then I'll probably eventually do want to bring in Whitfield in at some point. But I think the defence is strong enough for now. We've got Reed. Maybe even McDonald if he gets selected potentially in. It's not a huge disaster with the defence. It's mainly this midfield. And maybe even the forward line potentially. I've got a similar forward line to majority of the competition. It's just missing midfield here with Rosie and Sarong is probably the main difference. That's sort of really letting me down. So if I can get rid of, probably, I want to hold on to them for now, but yeah, this midfield has to. So I'll probably, actually I'll put a loophole on him and maybe just have Kako there. And Huswaite just has to stay on there, I guess. At this stage. Because yeah, it's in there. Which is not really good having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rookies on there, particularly in midfield here. I want to have to work on that. I might even bring in another midfielder if I can. We'll soon see. Alright, well, thank you for watching. I probably might not make a video next week. We'll see.